So for tomorrow's test, this review that I gave you yesterday pretty much encompasses the entire test. The only thing that it doesn't have on this review sheet are, I'm going to ask you to write the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of an angle. And I'm going to ask you to just take the sides. Like, for example, if it's sine, I want you to get the side that's opposite the angle and the hypotenuse, put it in a fraction, and simplify. Okay, so I'll show you those type of questions when I'm talking about 1, 2, and 3. So on the test tomorrow, you will have questions like 1, 2, and 3, where you're just missing the leg or the hypotenuse. So this type of question, you're going to be using Pythagorean theorem. Remember, whenever you have two of the sides given, to find the missing third one, you don't need a trig function or trig ratio. Use Pythagorean theorem. Now, let's say I asked you to find, and let me put in letters here. Let's say I added an A here, a B, and a C, and I said, find the cosine of angle B. Write your answer as a simplified fraction. What two sides do you use for cosine?
Adjacent hypotenuse.
Okay. Now, I don't have adjacent. What was the answer for x? Anybody have that?
Like 16.
You know what? Let me just go to the next one. Here we go. Okay, let's do this. All right, I'm going to do it from here where the answers are in here. A, B, C. All right. So here it said, I said, find the cosine of B. Now, on the quiz, on the test, all sides are going to be given. So you're not going to have to do Pythagorean theorem on this type of question. All the sides are going to already be labeled. Yes?
When you're finding the angle, you use cosine, but then when you find the number, you use cosine -1. It's the other way around.
The other way around. When you find the angle, it's cosine -1. All right. So if I said, find cosine of B, we know we need adjacent hypotenuse, right? What is the adjacent side in relation to B? The 16. Okay? And I need hypotenuse because this is the ka. So I'm going to take my hypotenuse and my adjacent. I'm going to put 16 over 20. And then I have to reduce it. What is 4 over 5? Okay? You will have one where I'm going to ask you to find cosine. What if I said find sine of B? Opposite over hypotenuse, and it would have been 12 over 20. Was that simplified too? 3/5. And then I'm going to say find tangent of B. Tangent uses what? Opposite and adjacent. Okay, and then you would simplify. Okay, so that's the only thing that wasn't on here that is going to be on the test. Okay, and it specifically will state, find the sine of B, find the sine of A, whatever angle it is, and then you have to label the sides based on that angle. Yes?
So we don't have to input the cosine, we just leave it as a
Simplest form fraction. And it says that in the directions. So it's just going to say, write the sine of B as a simplified fraction. Okay? And it's a different question for each one. So I'm not going to give you one picture and ask you to find all three things. Okay? So each one of these, the sine question has a different picture, cosine and tangent, they all have different pictures. Now, some of the fractions don't need to be simplified. All right? But it'll say as a simplified fraction. Everybody hearing what I'm saying? Okay, so sometimes it'll already be simplified once you put it in to the right way. All right, so from 7-1, you will have a Pythagorean theorem question, which is like 1, 2, and 3. From 7-2, this was the converse of the Pythagorean theorem, and this is 4, 5, and 6, where you are going to put those three numbers into the Pythagorean theorem and classify the triangle. Remember, when c squared is greater, it's obtuse. When c squared is less than the other two squared, it's acute. A lot of you got confused on the quiz and put it backwards. Make sure you study it. All right? You will also have questions like 7, 8, and 9, where you're either missing the altitude, missing a leg, missing a segment, or missing the hypotenuse. Okay, so this was on the quiz. It was 7-3. So this is where we had all of those two proportions that we learned. Pretty good so far? All right, then you will also have a couple questions on the special right triangles. There are two types of special right triangles, 30, 60, 90 and 45, 45, 90. Now, what I recommend, when you did the homework, remember, it didn't give you a picture. I'm going to give you a picture, just like this question. All right, I'm not going to ask you to find X and Y. I'm only going to ask you to find X. On your picture on the test, it's going to have an X and a Y in there, but I'm only asking for X. All right, so remember when you do these questions, just like I did number 12, label which one's A, the 2A, the A radical 3. It makes it easier. Don't just do it in your calculator. You're going to get it wrong because the instructions say simplest radical form, just like this review did. So again, on number 10, this is A, this one's 2A, and this one would be A radical 3. So notice here they gave me A. If I asked you to find Y, what would Y be? It's right there, it's 8, 2 times 8, 2 times 4. And then if I asked you to find X, you just took what A was and put radical 3 behind it. Yes?
Like, let's say for A, they give you like 2 radical 4. How do you plug that into A radical 3?
All right, so let's say they gave you what? 4 radical 2?
Yeah, whatever.
All right, so then what you would do is, that's what A equals, so you put it there, and then you put the radical 3, and when you have 2 radicals, you just multiply what's underneath. So that would just become 4 radical 6. All right, the next part, okay, this is all the trig ratios. Now, for this one, you had to first use the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side length. So first thing you had to do was find AC by Pythagorean theorem. On this question, Pythagorean theorem to find EF. And then over here, you did a trig ratio first. So on the test, I'm not going to ask you to solve the triangle. Okay, each one of the trig questions, I'm going to give you a separate picture for each. Okay, and what I mean by that is each question, for example, on number 13, this question might have said, find the measure of angle A. All right, so what you would do here is you're going to use, we're going to look to see what 11 and 5 are in relation to angle A. Okay, what is 11? Adjacent. Okay, what is 5? Which trig ratio uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So that's the function, the tan ratio I'm going to use, and it's an angle I'm looking for. So I would do tan to the -1, and then in my calculator I would do 5 divided by 11, and then hit enter, and that's going to give me my angle. All of the angle questions are going to say round to the nearest degree. This question said to the 10th place. So for example, angle A would have just been 24. This one would have actually rounded up to a 66. So read what I'm looking for. Everybody following here? All right. So use the numbers that are there and decide what the sides are in relation to what you're looking for. On this one, what if I said find the measure of angle D? What are the two sides that are there? What are they? What's the 5.4? Adjacent and hypotenuse. Which trig ratio uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Cosine. So you're going to do cosine -1, and then in your calculator, you're going to do 5.4 divided by 9.2. And then that'll give you the angle measure. Okay, each question will have their own thing. I'm not going to say in the same question, also find F or also find EF. I'm only going to ask you to find one thing in each question. Good so far? All right. And then the word problem, study the notes. Study 7 notes. Yes.
Is there different ways that you can find the angle measures?
There's different ratios depending on what you found first. Now, I recommend you always go by what's given, okay? Now, let's say we wanted to find D, and let's say we found EF first, and we put 7.4. But let's say we did Pythagorean theorem, and we got our answer for EF, and let's say we thought the correct answer was 6. And then let's say I did a trig ratio, and I used opposite and hypotenuse, and let's say I said, okay, I'm going to do sine to find angle D. And let's say I did 6 with the number I got and tried to divide it by 9.2. That's going to give me the wrong answer for D. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if you did it with the correct answer, which was the 7.4, then you would get the right answer. So yeah, there's more than one way you can do based on the sides. But what I recommend you do is use the information that's given because you know it's accurate. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it radical on the bottom, or is it on the top? Is it rationalized?
When it's in the bottom, you rationalize.
What do you do to rationalize it?
You make it a perfect square. So, for example, if you had, let's say your answer ended up 3 over radical 2, what I would do is to get the radical out of the bottom, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by radical 2, and then it becomes 3 radical 2, and then the 2 comes out of the radical. Yes?
Are we going to have problems that's like you have to carry over, and then it's like 10, negative 1 parentheses, like 57? Are we going to have those on the test? Like it's the one where you like take it over and you put like the tan in parentheses and put like a number outside of it?
You're going to have to set up the ratio and solve them, yes.
No, not like that. I'm like, there's like the one where you like make it equal to 10 and you like carry over the number like to the side of it.
So like, let's say it was like tan of, so you're trying to find an angle measure, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, whenever you're finding an angle measure, you're just getting the side opposite and the adjacent, dividing those and then doing the tan negative 1.
Is Mr. Crouch here today?
Yes, yes. So if this were your question, and let's say it said find the measure of the angle, what you're going to hit is either your second key, then the tangent button, and then whatever side opposite, let's say it was 5, and this side was 7, you would hit 5 divided by 7, probably close parentheses, and then enter. Everybody's calculator is going to be different. Okay? So pretty much this review looks like your test. The only thing that it's lacking is writing the trig ratio as a simplified fraction. And again, it will have a word problem, nothing like 16. It will have something that's involving a trig ratio, but what I recommend you do is study the 7 notes. If you did not take notes and draw the pictures of the examples, watch the video. Any questions about your test? Okay, the entire test, you can use your calculator. Again, read the directions. Okay, some of them say simplest radical form, some say round to the nearest degree, some say round to the tenths. Each question is different, so make sure you read it. Okay, several of them say write your answer as a simplified fraction. Again, if it doesn't need to be simplified, just write it, okay? Because some versions of the test, maybe question 1 needed to be simplified, but 2 didn't. So just know that the answer should be written as a simplified fraction. Same thing on the radical questions. If it says, write your answer in simplest radical form, and let's say you get the square root of 25, well, simplest radical form would mean it's coming out and it's a 5. Okay, so some of the questions where simplest radical form, it could be a perfect square. Any other questions for the test? Yes.
So no factoring quadratic formula or proofs on the test?
No factoring, no quadratic formula, no proofs. Is that all you said?
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, so no factoring, no quadratic formula, no proofs on the test. It's pretty straightforward. You will have to simplify radicals. So make sure you know how to break them down and leave your answer in simplest radical form. You may have to rationalize some of the radicals, but no factoring, no quadratic formula, and no proof. Pretty much looks like this. Any other questions? And again, each question has only one answer for each. It's not like you have to solve something first to do the problem. Everything that you're looking at in the problem is what you need to solve it. You won't have to do Pythagorean theorem to get a missing side to get your final answer. Everything should be there. All right, any other questions? Yes?
Did we get back our quizzes?
Yes. I will double check. There were some people that were absent, so I will look for those. But yes, you should have your quizzes. You could use those to study for this section in here, like the 7, 8, 9, and even the classify the triangles, and even Pythagorean theorem. So really from 9 up, that was what was on your quiz. All right, so I will look to see if if I have anybody else's quizzes, and look through this. If you need to see anything else worked out, I'll work them out. Otherwise, you still have the study guides. I know that's usually what I review from, but this was nice and condensed and everything was all on the same page. So now anything that you need more practice of, go to the study guides and look for those problems, because the study guides do have the answers attached.